looked at me, and the emptiness in her eyes was cruel to see. Then she turned away and said, once I loved, but love
And I'm Miss Naro.
and I whispered, sometimes love is only sleeping.
All the hobbies and things that we hold dear in the realm of comics, movies, TVs, and music. It's a little bit of everything. Yeah, basically just free for all discussion without any type of limit, and hopefully explain why we love what we love, and starting back from the history of it up to the present. So I'm shaking my head, but yeah, I just realized no one could see that, so no. I'm nodding, like, yes, of course. In their mind's eye, they can see. Do you ever do that on the phone? Like, all the time. Like, and just nod and like, oh, wait, I mean to say yes out loud. Or like, you know? Yeah, yes. Yeah, I've been answering you. Oh, wait, no, I really haven't. Oh, it's that whole nonverbal communication thing. So let's see. I want to start asking you some stuff if I could. Yeah, absolutely. Because for those who are listening, I know Nick through the comic book store. Talked to him for a bunch of years, but didn't realize the connection that we had already had. It's a weird connection. Yeah. His mom was my art teacher in high school. Yeah. And I still see her at the meetings that we have twice a year. So, small world indeed. It is. But one of the things I know about you is you also love Indiana Jones. Yes. As I do. Mm-hmm. What made you, and it's funny too, because I remember that hearing discussion, because back in high school I used to talk about Indiana Jones, and your mom would tell me, oh yeah, Nick, yeah, he loves Indiana Jones. Yep. I thought, oh, that's nice. Yeah. Didn't thought, oh, the little boy likes Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. Well, you still do, and that's wonderful. I do, yeah. It's really, I don't know how to explain it, but I mean, everything, not just Indiana Jones, but like everything for me has always been like a combination of things. I mean, the movies were obviously there, but when I must have been like 3 or 4, and my cousin, who is a girl, she had the Indiana Jones action figure that came out when Raiders came out. Which, oh, yeah, I mean, they did the Raiders line of figures. There's a handful of them. I don't remember. I think it's 12 or some different figures. And they did a Temple of Doom line, which I've never seen in person, despite looking really hard to get. But she had Indy, and I was fascinated with the figure, and I've always loved toys. I mean, it's expected for a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, however old I was. It had to be one of those ages to love toys, especially in the late 80s, early 90s, because we didn't really have video games yet. We did, but like they weren't as widespread. We played them, but we still played with toys. Oh yeah. So she had it, and I would play with it whenever I hung out at my cousin's house or whatever. And then eventually she's just like, take it home. And I was ecstatic, like, oh my God, this action figure, I love it. I want to play with it. Ever. Yeah, and so it's such a weird story. I had it and played with it forever, and with my other stuff. But it's like a GI Joe size figure with the whip. Yeah. And you pull the arm back, and it whips. And it whips, yeah. And obviously, it didn't have the gun or the whip. She might have had them. I don't know, but I didn't have them at the time. So like, I would get a piece of string and like tie it to his hand and like whatever. Because my mom is an artist and she sews and stuff, so she has like all that stuff. And I would just make my own things. And so I had it, and I went to bed that night so excited, and I woke up in the morning and it was gone.
And my brother and I had bunk beds, and I slept on the top bunk. And I woke up and I realized that this figure was missing. And I'm like, oh no, what happened to it? And I searched and searched and searched all day, and I couldn't find it.
Panic too.
Oh yeah, I was totally panicked because it wasn't really mine. Like, what if she wanted it back or something like that? I mean, she'd given it, quote unquote, to me, but it wasn't really mine. And I was like, oh no, what do I do? And I told my parents that finally, like, I can't find it, and they're like, keep looking, and I mean, eventually we moved from the place that we lived, and everything was out of the room, and I thought maybe it would turn up eventually. Nothing. So I was heartbroken. I mean, for all of that time, this is before eBay, before, you know, I couldn't say, let's go to a flea market and try to find some Indiana Jones figures to my parents. You know, it didn't exist. If it wasn't in the stores, I couldn't get it. So I never had an Indiana Jones figure until I think I was about like 14 or 15, and eBay started being like way more prominent.
Sure.
So obviously one of the first things I looked for was Indiana Jones on eBay, and I found a blind auction, which was one of them without pictures. Like, now you kind of take it for granted that everything has a picture you're going to see on the website. But like back in the earlier days of eBay, not everything had pictures. Some did, but not everything. Yeah. And this one just said, and plus it was a little bit more sketchy because you never knew if you were actually going to get what you bought. You know, you could get ripped off a lot easier back in those days. And I'm talking like, that's probably about 12 years ago now. So I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try. And I found a blind auction that just said it was the regular Indy, and then the German disguise Indy, and then the German mechanic.
Okay.
And it was $30, I think. It was $30, and I was like, ooh, I mean, especially for 14 years old, I was like, okay, you know, that's a lot of money for me.
Sure.
But I want this really bad, and it's old, and it's hard to find. 30 is not bad, especially because a lot of the other prices were much higher for just one.
Right.
And I was like, okay, got it. I won the bid, won the auction, and got it in the mail, and was so excited to finally have it. I still have it on my indie shelf, the three of them, and they were in really good condition too. Like, they weren't like broken. He had his thumbs actually, which is, you know, for anybody who had GI Joes from back in the 80s, or especially the indie line, like, thumbs were the first thing to go. So I got that, and then cut to, you know, actually just a couple of years ago. I'm 26 now. I think I was probably 23 or whatever. Now that I'm older and I can, you know, drink with my family and my cousins and, you know, all that stuff, I got to talking about Indiana Jones, and I think it was we had a Halloween party and I was dressed up as Indy, and I was like, do you remember? I said to my cousin, I'm like, you gave me your Indiana Jones figure when I was little, and I lost it, and I'm sorry. Like, I can replace it now. I can buy one on eBay for you. She's like, I have it. What do you mean? I'm like, what do you mean you have it? You've had, like, how long have you had it for? She's like, I've had it forever. I don't know. I found out that while I was sleeping, my parents took it from me and put it away and then gave it back to her. And they let me think for all of these years that I had lost it, like something that important, you know. That's like 20 years. I was so worried, you know, like, you know, if I had known any earlier, I would have been okay. I would have felt better, but so, I mean, Indy's relation to me is like, that was like my holy grail, you know, and I lost it. Having that, the only Indy figure that was, you know, available, and I lost it, and I searched for the longest time, and I mean, I have one now, but so I felt like Indiana Jones in that way, you know, searching for something that was lost, and then, you know, but eventually, obviously, it came to nothing. But I don't know. I mean, there was both that fascination, the fascination with the action figure, and then with the movies. It was just always something we watched. And I know I kind of take it for granted that I was always able to watch, you know, a VHS or whatever. But we just had them. I mean, those were some of the things we had, and they were just my favorites because the adventure is just uncanny. You know, it's it's really so big.
I'll tell you this: it really sets a precedent with Indiana Jones because they make sure the action is so intense, and then he narrowly gets out of it, only to fall into the next thing.
Right, and
you know what I mean? Nobody else does that.
No, and I still think that's something that's missing in movies today. And as an aspiring filmmaker, I kind of want to bring that back because I feel like, especially with Indy, and I mean not just with him, but movies from that era, like the early '80s and maybe late '70s, or just the whole '80s even. The hero of the movie was always, you know, if somewhat reluctant. Not always, but somewhat. No, but they were always the underdog. You know what I mean? Like Indy was just a guy. He was just a regular guy who had, you know, he was smart, so he could figure out ways to get out of problems. You know, he could kind of fight. He was able to hold his own. Right. Exactly. He wasn't like the best. It was just through luck or smarts that he was able to use his brawn as well to get out of it. And I feel like, you know, in Die Hard, John McClane, same thing. Back to the Future, you know, Marty McFly, small, like Michael J. Fox is shorter than me. He's like, what, 5'3" or something like that. But you rooted for those guys, and there was a real sense of drama when they could be in danger, you know. I mean, you obviously know that your main character's gonna survive and go on, but you can.
Nowadays, that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, not
bad has been let's kill off the hero every chance we get.
Right, right. But I mean,
the cliche they were fighting against.
Right, but I think that falls in a. I think that that's because they want to make it, you know, more realistic, and that's fine. But I think it's an issue. I think it's an issue with filmmaking as they can't build the drama around their character. You know, the thing with Indy is like, yeah, there's a lot of action, but there's character development too. I mean, he grows.
Oh,
he grows from Temple of Doom to Crystal Skull. I mean, and I say Temple of Doom first because it's chronologically the first one, but there's a character development there too, and I think a lot of movies, not all of them. There are a lot of good movies, but they don't have that sense, you know, of like you will know that the character is going to survive, but you can get lost in the movie rooting for the underdog and not knowing for sure, you know. And I don't know a lot of movies that do that nowadays because everything is like, you know, with the Bourne movies, they're great movies, but Matt Damon is the master fighter, you know. What's that?
You don't necessarily admire the guy. You like to watch him kick butt, but I've never aspired to be Jason Bourne.
Yeah.
I want to be more like Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
You know, like you were saying, you nailed it right on the head. For me, all of my heroes, and we'll get to them through many a conversation, but the common factor in all of them is that they're human. My favorite superhero is Batman. You know, when we get to who my big hero is, TV movie wise, it's the same thing. It's not somebody who has a superpower of any sort. It's like you said, the reluctant hero, and it's someone who's attainable. I could be potentially that person.
Yeah.
You know, you can learn. In the case of Indiana Jones, you can learn archaeology. You can learn how to read, you know, hieroglyphics and different languages. It's all attainable.
Yeah.
And talking about his growth, you're right. I typically say that I prefer a TV series over a movie because a TV series allows you to track all those quiet little moments in between the action where you're getting to see the growth of the character. And that doesn't happen over 2 or 3 movies in most cases. In the case of Indiana Jones, I know it's been discussed on, I think it's the Indiana Jones podcast.
Yeah, the IndyCast.
They talk about his spiritual enlightenment. If you watch Temple of Doom, he's very much a cynic.
Yes.
And then, you get to all the way up to you can go to the next one, Raiders.
Right.
He starts to have faith, and through everything else, even though he's skeptical, which is a sign of a good scientist, archaeologist, anybody, you should go into it being skeptical.
Yeah.
He, by the end of the movie, goes, oh, okay, wow, now I have faith. My faith is stronger.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Besides the yay for God element, it's gutsy and brave that they've done that, especially in a world where it seems like, isn't it cool to not be a person of faith?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that, that's a different discussion altogether. But out of all the things in the world that irk me, arrogance to that is just,
Well, I mean, there's not to go off track, I'll just add my little opinion on that, because I have a really different belief system, and I don't mean that to be I don't want to sound like condescending or anything like that. But I obviously I believe in science, but I can never understand the people who can sit around and just say it's one or the other.
I agree.
You know what I mean? It's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than you can even imagine, and we haven't even touched the surface. And I don't think science existing or having all of those facts negates any sort of higher power. I just think that if there is a higher power, it's much bigger than we can comprehend, or anybody has comprehended, or been able to. And I think a lot of the ideas of religion, whether it be Christianity or any of them, if you move past the fanaticism of any religion, there's a lot of good morals, in the stories or just in the doctrines. It's all there, and I think if you could focus on the ideas of how to be a good human being, everything could progress. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
no. I honest to God, Nick, I couldn't say it better than you did, because it drives you nuts when you see people say, no, it's science or it's religion. No, it's both. They work. You got to remember, religion, and I often say this to my wife when we have our discussions about it.
Yeah.
It's man-made. It's not God-made. God's there. Religion is man's search for understanding and the truth.
Right.
And it's only, like you said, when people get fanatical about it that you fall into the uh-oh zone of, okay, well, now you're not even trying to keep your mind open to where science works with it.
Yeah.
You're right, because no matter what they say science-wise, it all goes back to, yes, but it all was created by a higher power.
Yeah.
I don't claim to know anything about, how God works or anything about him. And I think people fall into that pit once they say, I'm not listening to your side. And I'm,
yeah,
you said it perfectly. I couldn't have done it better.
It's just hard, and I really don't want to take it into like a religion versus science.
No, I
don't want to spend too much time on it, because I don't want our audience to think that's what we're going to talk. I don't want them to think that's all we'll talk about. I just needed to get it out there. It's not one or the other. It won't ever be.
Appreciate this. It was funny because you know how they say some things you should never discuss are politics and religion.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's just what we said. I don't think enough people can agree to say that I don't know. Because when it comes down to it, on any of those topics, I don't think I have the answers.
Yeah.
It eases my world just to say, yeah, I have my thoughts, but ultimately, I don't know.
Yeah, you're not an expert. And I don't think, there are science experts. Obviously, they're the ones making headway through this world in science, and that is fantastic, and I'm all for it, for everything that's gonna help, humanity, because we need it. You look at all the things that are going on, and we need it. We need the help scientifically, absolutely. And that's amazing. But you can read any book, and you could be an expert on the text, but unless you were there when it was written, unless you were there when it happened, you'll never know. Because how many history books do we find out today, like, oh, hey, this actual event in history didn't really happen the way it's, they said it did. So what makes the Bible the one that survived? We already know it didn't. It's been edited, revised by, King James and hundreds of other people. So I mean, I like the idea of the Christian Bible, or any, Bible, as a guide for morality. But
it also, and that's the danger, it can be taken and interpreted. You have the fanaticals that interpret it very, very literal.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's supposed to be that way.
Right. And it's like poetry. Everybody's going to get something different out of everything based on your own personal experiences. You can't.
And you even said it with the one thing that bridges the gap between all religions is, the basic moral. They're all connected because they're all basically saying the same message, whether it's the Old Testament, the New Testament, the Quran, whatever you want. They're all basically saying, do good, don't do bad.
Right.
And they're just saying it maybe different ways, but the common thread is that message.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, you already said, when you get fanatical about something, whether it be anything, and I've said that many of times in my life, fanaticism in anything, whether it be religion or music or anything, don't do it, because that all of a sudden means you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, there are things that are right and things that are wrong. And then there's obviously the shades of gray in between.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just so hard to say because things are always evolving and changing. And I know that could be a dirty word to somebody, is evolution, but it just is. I always like to say, and this is, not that Indiana Jones ever said it, but all it is a history lesson. You just look back at the times, look at what has happened, look at where we came to. Look at how things have changed in the past 5 years, 10 years. Like, it's going to be crazy, the amount of technology just building and stuff like that. But it's just always changing. And if you can't be a person who can grow, I don't know. I don't know where you find enlightenment or happiness, because I don't want to say that simple people are bad in any way. If you find something that makes you happy, by all means do it, but don't let it hinder other people too, because
exactly.
Gaining knowledge and creating and discovering might make somebody else happy. It might make a lot of people happy.
Mm-hmm. As long, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because no matter what you do in this world, as long as you're not hurting somebody, you're good to do it.
That's what I think. That's what I try to do.
Yep.
That's how I try to live. So I think, that I think is the best, and that's my personal opinion, but I think that's the best way to go about things. If you're not inflicting damage on people or their things, what does it matter?
Exactly. That and also I think what makes people, what makes life worth living is not just going to work, coming home, sitting in front of the TV, going to sleep, waking up and doing it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should be striving to be more, to do more.
Yeah. And but if you don't want to, if you just want to be yourself and yourself is simple, then that's fine too.
Right.
It's all okay. That's what I'm saying. It's all okay.
At least don't harm others.
Right. That's it. That's the main thing, I think. But anyway, aside from that, let's go back to some more pop culture.
Let me tell you my history with Indiana.
Sure.
Okay, so for me with Indiana Jones, when I was a kid, we went on vacation, at the time you could only rent, under comedy there was Bill Cosby himself or Animal House. And under action, it was Raiders or maybe Star Wars.
Right.
And my father got this movie for us to rent, and basically for me to keep me busy while they went and played cards or something. And he pops in and says, "No, it's going to be a great movie." And I know he hasn't seen the movie, so I don't know how much of that to believe.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, everything that we said about him being, human and going from one impossible situation just to fall into the next, loved it. It's the Indiana Jones movies are they're the ones that I hold as what I compare everything else to.
Yeah.
So and from then I remember going to the theater and seeing Temple of Doom. I remember buying the T-shirt with Indy and Short Round down the, as the picture.
Yeah.
One of those iron-on pictures.
Yeah.
And missing. I remember walking into the theater because we were late, and we got to the part where they're in the airplane and it's going to crash, and they have to jump out with the inflatable boat.
Yeah.
From that point on, was what I saw originally. But honest to God, I'm with you. Like, everything about him, I just think is fantastic. I've often considered how much of him is applicable to my own life. Like, how much, inspiration can you get?
Right.
I don't think he necessarily works for me as well to the day in everyday situation. I think it more applies for the big monumental moments.
Right.
Life decision type of choices. But that's only because there've been the movies, and then the TV show is a completely different animal.
Right.
Love the TV show, by the way. Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I was so excited. I recorded every one from the TV.
Right.
Or at least every one that they showed. Went back and bought them all on VHS a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Most of them were not open.
Oh, it's a good collection.
Huh?
That's a good collection to have.
Oh, yeah. I took them to my parents and my mother-in-law's for Mikey. So that when he gets it, now he already likes Indiana Jones. He's 3, my son.
Yeah.
And he already knows Indiana Jones. So he'll have those when he's patient enough. Because that's about the TV show. It's not. It's interesting for people who like Indiana Jones, and it was done in a very artistic way.
Right.
Unfortunately, and Lucas has since said this, everybody is waiting for the beholder.
Right.
And I don't mean that literally. I mean, if you say Indiana Jones, what's the thing that comes to mind?
Yeah.
It's that action adventure, edge of your seat type stuff.
Right.
Young Indiana Jones Chronicles did not have that.
No.
I love it for what it is. It's very interesting. It's very cool. But I was waiting to see Sean Patrick Flannery start acting more like Harrison Ford.
Right.
He's very, he's a teenager. He's a whiny kid in it.
Yeah. And
then you're supposed to see his journey to become the Harrison Ford Indiana Jones.
Right. So it's like, it's the Phantom Menace, but a lot longer.
Yeah. And a lot better. I mean,
yeah.
I love it.
Well, I mean, I remember seeing bits and pieces of the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles. I have the first volume on DVD.
Yep.
With the kid, and I'm hesitant to watch it because, I mean, as much as I love Indy and everything, and I'm sure I'll get around to it someday, I kind of want to see him as an older character, and I'm actually expanding on my Indy collection now because there's a couple, action figure lines or whatever that I'm collecting that are either going away or they're just not around right now or whatever, so I have like some excess money, and now I'm filling in gaps of my indie stuff. People are going to think this is just an Indiana Jones podcast, but we're just getting it out of the way. I think we're just going to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get the other 2 volumes of Young Indiana Jones stuff, which is all the Sean Patrick Flannery things that I want to see. I have a couple indie novels that I've read, and luckily they're like the first ones that came out, so like I'm kind of following the whole journey, and I ordered the ones that I don't have, and I'm gonna get through those, and then I'm gonna collect some of the Dark Horse comics and stuff like that. But I mean, it's all just a matter of money, and I have to order it all online, so.
Right.
But I'm gonna get around to those, and I want to see them. I know I saw them when they first came out, but I was very young.
Right.
So I don't remember them that much. But yeah, I mean, I love history, so that's, I mean, for me, it's not gonna be about the big ball, you know, and that's how we used to refer to Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, like we didn't know it was Raiders of the Lost Ark. We were like, Indiana Jones, we want to watch the one with the big ball, you know, like that. When we were kids, that's what we said.
It's funny too because I always liked Sean Patrick Flannery in the part, but I hated Corey, whatever his name was, that played the little version of him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not his fault. It's just it was hard to picture that little whiny, bold kid becoming Indiana Jones.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that was supposed to be the point. You know, he was a kid. That's how kids are, and it's hard. It's even though we're kind of like big kids right now because we like this stuff. It's so hard to remember. Just being a child, you know, with the lack of information that you have now, like it's hard to put yourself in that place.
Right.
And I think that's hard to relate to for adults. To get back to that place and accept that, you know, he didn't come out of the womb with the bullwhip and a hat, you know, and he was just with Harrison Ford's head on a baby body, just ready to kick ass, you know. It's hard to accept that, but I mean that's part of it. If you love the character, then
you want to see the whole journey.
You will want to see the whole journey.
That's how they advertised it too. They said, "Look, watch how this little boy becomes the legend that we know."
Right. And the novels are great too because they start at right when he gets out of college. I'm pretty sure is the first one. I haven't read that first one. I don't have it. I'm waiting for it to come, but you really watch him grow through all of the things, and they're all supernatural things, you know, some Christian related, some not. And you watch him grow from the scientist cynic to boom, there he is in Raiders, still skeptical, you know, or in Temple of Doom, still skeptical, but you watch how his personality forms, you know, or you read how his personality forms, and they're you know, they're really good. They're short. They're easy to read. You know, it takes me a little bit of time to read. I'm a pretty quick reader, but like I like things to take time. So like you said before with TV shows, I'm starting to appreciate more and more shows because they have more time, and I think that's why I love comics so much too, because it's not just one and done. You know, the movies are great. I'm glad they're there, but I'll never just say like, you know, the movie was it. That was good. That was all I need. You know, I want more information, and I love comics because they keep going. You know, they keep building, and that's why I like to read the books too. And I like for it to take time.
Well, you know,
and invest in it
too,
you know?
Because the things that I love, I'm the same way. I don't just get a CD by this person. If I love that person's sound, I want to get every single thing. If I like this show, great. I want to get every single, you know, what do you call it? When you have to get the whole darn run of something.
Completist?
Yes. Yeah. I sometimes feel like that.
Yeah.
I don't do that as much with comics, only because I've been burnt too many times.
Right.
I used to just keep getting comics, the title, even though I hated what I was reading, but then I got it from the beginning. I got to finish it.
Yeah.
You know, and then I realized, no, you know, life's too short and money's too hard to come by to waste it.
Yeah, I have a couple friends, and just from reading forums and stuff where people are, you know, completists for one thing or the other, like comics or figure lines and stuff like that. And one of my friends is like that. He bought all like the DC Universe classics. Like he's got everything from Wave 1 variants, exclusives and stuff like that. And we were just talking the other day, and I'll probably get him on the show too for the podcast. But he was looking through the other day, and he's like, man, there's so many things I regret that I bought so much of, and I'm like, I've never been a completist with everything. I mean, the closest I think I came was when the Indiana Jones line came out, and I got everything, but it was such a small line that I could, and
Sure.
and there's still some stuff I don't have just because I didn't want or need it. You know, if it was a double or just anything, like, don't get me wrong, I'll buy multiples of a single figure if I like it enough, but
Sure.
it's so hard because I'm the kind of person that, like, even if I really like something, I doesn't mean that I'll like all of it. Like with Star Wars, I like the original trilogy. I don't hate the prequel trilogy. In fact, I love Liam Neeson in it. Like, I can watch Phantom Menace, and yeah, I'll kind of not like the pod racing stuff and the Anakin stuff, but Phantom Menace is worth it to me to watch just for Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor. I mean, Ewan McGregor is my favorite part of the prequel trilogies. Him as Obi-Wan, best thing. I mean, some people like Sam Jackson, some people like what they did with Yoda or whatever, and they can just...
he did a great job doing, bridging the gap with Alec Guinness.
Yeah, I mean, he made me love Obi-Wan. I loved Ewan McGregor before Star Wars. I liked him as an actor, and I still love him, and I love his Obi-Wan. I think he's awesome. And so, I mean, but that doesn't mean I have to love the prequel trilogies and get everything from it. Like, no, I have an Obi-Wan collection of figures and maybe some Anakins and stuff, because I don't hate Hayden Christensen. I think he was adequate for... Right. I think he did exactly what George Lucas asked him to do.
I don't blame the actor.
And if he, if it was more like, if they had more power, like the original trilogy cast had, to say, George, no, let's, come on.
Right, like, no.
They didn't have that power. No one did. It was kind of like George put the script down, said, be this way, do it, and no one questioned it. I don't think anybody could, especially Hayden. Like, he was still young, holy crap, I'm in Star Wars, of course I'm going to do whatever George Lucas says. They didn't have Harrison's, like, gruff personality being like, George, you're ridiculous, man. Like, or even Mark Hamill being like, well, what if we do it like this? I don't think anybody on the set of the prequel could even ask, like, and say, hey, what about this? Maybe Ewan, maybe Liam Neeson, but maybe, but everyone else, I don't think even had a chance. So I don't blame Hayden for his performance, because I think, did you ever see the movie Life is a House that he's in with Kevin Kline?
Yes, great movie.
He was exactly that way in Attack of the Clones, and I think George Lucas probably saw him and said, that's exactly how I want my Anakin to be, and cast him from that movie and said, that performance you just gave, that whiny, kind of stuck up, just do that. And again, I don't, whether you agree with the characterization of the character or not, that's whatever, but I don't think he was bad. I think he did exactly what he was asked to do, and that's it.
I'm with you. I agree, because in most cases, people love to pick on the actor. Look at the role they had to play. Ha ha ha.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as they're doing their job and acting well, that's it. You can't point and laugh at them because they were, I don't know, Smurf number 3 from 1982.
Mm-hmm.
They are an actor trying to get a part.
Right.
I respect people who, especially the people who are big shots now, who have had to do sucky parts way back when.
Right.
Or maybe after their big TV or movie where they became a household name, maybe they step back a little bit. Maybe they do a couple TV commercials. There's no shame in that.
No.
If they believe in the project and they have the luxury of making that decision.
Right.
Fantastic. And in some cases, they don't even have the luxury. They have to take what they can get.
Right. And I think, now that I've done a couple short films and stuff like that, like, people, obviously there's a bunch of people who like movies, enjoy them and whatever, but they, don't care to look past what happened, in the making of it. And you'd be surprised to find out, like, how little power an actor actually has to do, I mean, almost anything. Like, they do have the power of the choices that they can make, but if a director wants something specific and you're not comfortable with doing it, or you don't believe in the choice or whatever, I mean, that's obviously going to show up on screen. But if that's what they want, I mean, ultimately they're the ones who end up with the footage at the end of the day and can put it together however they want. So it's, it's as much, I don't want to just say George Lucas's fault, because he got his vision, and that's about any director. I mean,
sure.
It's all what they want at the end of the day. So, when you come out with a stellar performance and a stellar movie at the same time, that's just those two people collaborating and having the same vision. And I think that comes through in like a lot of the Martin Scorsese stuff with DiCaprio and with Robert De Niro. You could just see that they're artists who have the same vision, and that's why you get a stellar performance and a stellar movie. And it's you can really see it in certain movies, and some you can't see it.
Some of the movies that bomb, that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad movies.
No, not at all.
It just means that whatever, the timing was off, maybe the advertisement, or it didn't do its job.
Exactly.
But you watch the movie, and it could be one of the best freaking movies you ever saw.
Yeah.
I don't think you should put a lot of weight on how well it does in the theater.
Right, and I think too many people do. And I think one of the biggest ones, especially recently, was John Carter.
No, I haven't seen it. I heard it was great, though.
Exactly. Like, you hear that it's good, and I'm going to tell you right now that I enjoyed it a lot, for someone who likes action movies, sci-fi. And, I mean, I know the books are good, and being on forums, reading what people read or write, people who have read the books said, it was really, really good, even, close to the source material. And I don't know what happened with it. Maybe it's just not for this audience. Maybe it's just not for people weren't interested in it. I don't know if it was marketing or what. And I feel bad for the kid who played John Carter, because he was in that and it bombed, and Battleship and that bombed. And I mean, personally, I thought Battleship was going to bomb, and it was a stupid idea to make that movie. And I've never read anybody say, like, I saw it and it was fantastic. I mean, maybe kids would like it just because if they haven't seen anything better. But I mean, there's that, and I think he was in something else. What's that?
Scott Pilgrim. That was I was so thrilled.
Oh yeah, Scott Pilgrim's fantastic. And the best thing about actually, I don't know, it's the best and the worst, but I read the novels before they came out, like the graphic novels of Scott Pilgrim.
Okay.
And loved it. I mean, it was awesome for me. I mean, it was for my generation. That's what it was written for. Like, people who grew up with all the same stuff I grew up. That's exactly what it was for. And it never tried to be too serious. Never tried to be like, I don't know how to explain it. It just was fun. And then the movie came out, and I mean, I obviously would have wanted to play Scott Pilgrim myself, but Michael Cera was cast, and I actually thought he did a really good job. The only thing about Michael Cera is that when I read Scott Pilgrim, I thought that he was like a little bit more attractive than I think Michael Cera is.
And the way he's drawn, he looks a little more clean cut.
Right, he's a little cartoony. I mean, Michael Cera kind of is a little bit cartoony, but I mean, I guess anybody could have played it just because the graphic novels are so cartoony. Like, there's no distinguishing features really on anybody,
right? Except
for their hair.
That's what I was referring to.
But I still think Michael Cera did an awesome job. I'm not gonna say he didn't. He played the character just the way it was supposed to be. And when you watch the movie, if you've read the graphic novels, like, you sit there and go, this scene is right out of the pages. And there are some things that are changed, which were fine. It made sense to change them for the time being. But man, if they could have split the the movie up into the books and added the more time and the character development and all the other stuff that went on, it would have been fantastic. I wish that they could have done that. Um, but as it stands as a standalone movie that covers everything, it did its job well, and it is entertaining, and it was fun. So yeah, I mean, that movie, I think that luckily for it, it did decent enough in theaters where they wouldn't call it a bomb.
Sure.
But also sold really well after the fact. And I think that matters too. I watch like the Kevin Smith discussions. I don't know if you ever watched those or not. They might be a little bit too vulgar for you, but I love Kevin Smith. I mean, he's aside from Harrison Ford and Leonardo DiCaprio, he's like my third reason that I wanted to get into filmmaking, especially like writing and doing stuff on my own. He said that, you know, somebody asked him during one of the talks about his movies like bombing in theaters, and he's like, my movies didn't bomb, they just didn't overperform, you know, they did well enough, and then, you know, the studios are happy with me because they make a decent amount of money in theaters, but they really make their money when it goes to DVD.
Sure.
And that's where they make a lot of money off of it. So he's like, because I think somebody asked him, like, since his movies bombed, is he on like a blacklist and he can't make movies anymore or something like that? And he's like, I'm not on any blacklist, you know, my movies do well enough. And you know, people forget about that too, because I don't think anybody cares about DVD sales unless someone, you know, unless the Avengers comes out and, you know, they do some sort of survey and find out that everybody in America owns the movie or something like that.
Right.
Like, but no one cares after the fact. But, you know, it's just another thing that you don't think about that factors in. But yeah, I think a lot of people do miss good movies and fun movies because of, you know, critics talking about them beforehand and whatever else.
I enjoyed Green Lantern, but nobody was going to like it because the critics tore it apart 2 days before it came out.
Yeah, I thought...
Again, I could pick on it. Sure, I could.
Yeah.
My one friend said it's like 4 different movies mushed together where they didn't quite spend enough time on any of them.
Yeah.
And I agree with that. But overall, I don't feel like I wasted my money. I had fun.
Yeah.
It didn't change my life.
No.
But I'm glad I went. And that's, you know, I don't think it was as bad as what they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, and I like Ryan Reynolds. I don't think I would have cast him as Hal Jordan. I would have cast him as Barry Allen, but he was good. I mean, it's what they were going for. You know, Ryan Reynolds is a big name now, but I still don't think he has like the power of, you know, a Harrison Ford or a DiCaprio to say,
no.
Yeah, we're gonna make this movie, but let's do it the way it's supposed to be. You know, I mean, it was made the way that the director or whoever decided to make it wanted to make it, and
Right, like this movie should have focused on his training. They should have spent a lot more time on Oa.
Yeah.
He kind of just shows up, says, "Yeah, I'm not doing this," and leaves.
Yeah.
You're like, no, doesn't work that way.
Right, and I don't think Hal is as funny as they made
I agree.
Ryan Reynolds portray him as, because Ryan Reynolds doesn't need to be funny to be a good actor. I mean, I've seen him in a lot of things that he's not funny in. You know, what's the movie Buried? I don't know if you've seen it.
Just saw that a couple months ago. Great movie.
It's intense, and he's not funny in it, but he's really good. And then Safe House, I mean, that was fantastic. Him and Denzel Washington. If you haven't seen it, see it. It's
I haven't
really
seen
good.
it yet, but now I want to.
It's really good. I mean, anything with Denzel Washington, you can't go wrong. But it's good.
You know what I wanted to ask you?
Sure.
You talk about Indiana Jones. Would you say he is your I don't know, life role model, like someone who, it doesn't have to be him, it could be Harrison Ford or whatever. Who would you say would be your idol, your role model,
That is an excellent question. And I would say it's probably both, a combination of Indy and Harrison, because Harrison he doesn't. Yeah, but it's not even just that. I mean, he has never. I've just watching interviews with him, like even from day one, like when he just started getting really famous and whatever. He's never been the kind of guy to like just
live the Hollywood life.
Yeah, and he doesn't take any bullshit. He kind of just always talks straight. I mean, on Letterman or whatever, I feel like when he's been on those shows, he has like this little bit of a persona of like being this like down and out grump who like, but I think it's
try to play that up.
I think it's a joke that he plays up where he's just kind of like smart assy and like grumpy, but then in other stuff he's very happy and like whatever. But yeah, he just doesn't take any shit, and it's just like, and he does things for the right reason. Like I've read sorry, there's a fly. I've read all these stories about like him rescuing hikers, in his plane and stuff. How awesome is that? I mean, even if he wasn't Indiana Jones, just the fact that like an actor would do that is fantastic. And I mean, all the stuff he does with the environment and like, I don't know, just everything about him is awesome. And then
priorities straight.
Yeah, he just seems like a good person, like despite whether or not like he might not want to sign an autograph for a Han Solo picture or whatever. Screw that, like who cares?
Well, you know why?
Yeah, because
it's not necessarily a sincere. The kid coming up to him isn't trying to like, ooh, it's for Harrison Ford. No, they want to jump on eBay and sell it for however much.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother discussion with like autograph hounds and reading about people who are mad because someone was mean to them and wouldn't sign something. Come on, get over it.
Right.
I don't think he would do that for a child. If an actual child came up to him with a picture of Han Solo, he would definitely sign it. Like I don't think he would be like, he would spit in the kid's face and, kick him down the street. I don't think that's him.
Creators who would.
Yeah, absolutely. But so I mean, it's him personally, and then the Indiana Jones character as well, because I've always I did well in school, like pretty well, especially even if I was bored with the subject, like I didn't like it or whatever, I would half-ass it, but somehow still do pretty well. Like I was in advanced classes and everything, and not that I was like an overachiever by any means, but I was just always pretty intelligent without trying. So I've always like related to intelligent characters, and Indiana Jones is one of them. Like he, despite being a badass and being able to like handle his own in fights, like he's at the core a scientist, and an intellectual.
Right.
And I've always loved that part too. To say like just it's to say like when you watch like Revenge of the Nerds, it's either you're a nerd or a jock.
Right.
He was in between. He was both.
Many things too. That's the other thing.
And and I love that. He was well rounded. But I've always liked the smart characters. Who could still do well. Who could still fight. Like with Ninja Turtles, Donatello is my favorite character because he was smart. He was funny too, and he could fight. And that always translates to me as like if a character is intelligent and still able to, hold their own.
Sure.
That to me was important, and that related to me, because I've always been outdoorsy and athletic. I didn't really play a lot of sports in high school because I was doing acting, but I like to play sports. I don't like to watch sports a lot, but I'll play sports and be athletic and be, active. But I also highly regard intelligence and learning and knowledge. So he, for me, is that apex character. And yeah, so that
he's your number one.
He is my number one. I mean, of anything. If I'm gonna make a list of, favorite fictional characters, he's number one. Of any, like if we're gonna span anything, he is the absolute top. Okay. And then there are others who follow, but yeah. So yeah, that's definitely why. Who is your hero? I think that's the question you asked, right?
Yeah. As far as like an idol, a role model.
A role model. Right.
And very much in the same reason for you with Indiana Jones, and also the same reason why I like Indiana Jones / Harrison Ford. Mine is Richard Dean Anderson,
Okay.
MacGyver,
Okay.
and Jack O'Neill. Basically anything Richard Dean Anderson touches, I love. I feel like that connection to his personality.
Right.
Where, ever since I first saw him in '85 on MacGyver when it started, right away you watch the first episode and you go, okay, wow, this character is completely different. He's not carrying a big heavy gun to shoot at the bad guys. He's, like you said, using intelligence, which is what I value most over physical whatever. He's attainable,
right?
And he's a heck of a nice guy. When he starts talking, and if you watch the first episode, right away there's him telling a story while he's on his mission, and right away you like this guy.
Yeah.
So through the years, I would get called MacGyver, or and people mean it when you're being creative.
Right.
Well, I would also hear it because I look like him. Because I'm not 6'2", but I'm built enough like him.
Yeah.
Which helps
for
me.
The same way that people call me Indy, because I have a slight Harrison Ford resemblance.
Yep. But through the years, I would also get it because I would say something like him or act like him.
Yeah.
I would follow and think, okay, let me do the research to make sure the actor is as good as this character, so at least I know where to draw the line. Do I like the actor? Do I like the character? Turns out they built MacGyver's personality, his likes, his dislikes, everything except the MacGyverisms come from Richard Dean Anderson.
Okay.
And if you watch him through the years, he's such an inspirational person. He's, like you said, he's wonderful to children. The Harrison Ford comparison, everything you're saying about him, it's what I like about Harrison Ford. And I'm thinking, that also relates to Richard Dean Anderson.
Yeah.
Goes out of his way. He could just show up, do a part, go home, and that's it. But he does more with his life.
Right.
He's a big supporter of Sea Shepherd, Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Okay.
So everything about him through my life from '85 on has inspired me. I don't do it. Oh wait, MacGyver's doing it, so I have to do it. No, but I was pretty much on that path anyway.
Yeah.
And I have good influences in my life through my family and all, but to have that iconic hero, be someone that you can also relate to.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's him being able to, the thing that gets you in the door is, here's a hero who doesn't use a gun, who can, in any situation, he's going to win because he's smarter. He can make anything out of everything.
Right.
So, and it's real. It's real stuff. So that gets you in the door. Oh, wow, I want to see more. But what keeps you in the seat is what an inspirational person MacGyver / Richard Dean Anderson really is. The quiet moments in between the action on the TV show show him having conversations with people. I learned how to debate by watching how he does it. The whole give and take of a conversation. Knowing when to shut your mouth, knowing when to speak up. Everything. What I was saying with Indiana Jones, as much as I like him, it's limited as far as my everyday life goes. But with MacGyver and, Richard Dean Anderson, because he also then went on to be Jack O'Neill in Stargate,
right,
has those same type of moments. You're watching a personality at work in not always, it doesn't have to be the most extraordinary situations. It's the quiet moments in between.
Yeah.
What do you value? How do you protect it? How do you fight for it? And then how do you do more?
Yeah.
Like, watch any interview with Richard Dean Anderson or any footage of him when the camera's on him, but he's not doing an interview. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If they're just watching him between takes or whatever. Just his natural way he is with people.
Right.
He'll reach out and pat somebody or, give him a hug or he's so supportive. So it just comes back to the word inspirational.
Yeah.
And it's nothing big. It's nothing, pay attention to me. You think about all my heroes too, whether it be TV, music, anything. the common thread is they're humble.
Mm-hmm.
They're very, you give these people a compliment, and it may be absolutely true, but they'll play it down.
Yeah.
Like Richard Dean Anderson's humor is very self-deprecating.
Yeah, I like that.
Right? I mean, he'll say, well, it's good writing. That's why MacGyver was so popular.
Right,
but
right.
No, what made it popular was him.
Yeah.
If anyone else had gotten that part, and the way I understand it was a bunch of Italian guys in, T-shirts were sitting there all tanned and I'm going to be MacGyver. Had any of them gotten the part, I don't know if the show would have lasted a whole first season. Yeah, but because they focused on Richard Dean Anderson,
yeah,
it became the household name that it is. So Richard Dean Anderson in any role. So I'll say, through the years I was saying about people calling me MacGyver, and then I eventually just took it as my nickname because I would hear it at school, I'd hear it at home, I'd hear it from different people all on their own for various reasons. Either I was creative, or I looked like them, or I sounded like them. They'd say my personality matched his. And once I found out that he was such a wonderful person, I thought, yep, okay, I'm not going to fight it.
Yeah. So is that where Mac comes from?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shortened version of MacGyver.
Right.
Like when you watch the show, everybody refers to him as Mac.
Okay. Well, because your real name is actually Michael Jackson. I don't know if you want to put that out there or not, but I can imagine.
That was the other side of it. Going to a new school in third grade, I went when Michael Jackson hit it big in like '83.
Right.
He was wearing the beaded glove and the jacket, and I mean he was Beatle size popular.
Right.
It was insane.
Yeah.
You couldn't turn a corner without getting hit in the face with anything.
Hey, I know. I have all of the Michael Jackson tapes. As a child, I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. So
yeah. So
I mean, I still am. I still love his music, despite whatever did or didn't happen.
Oh, talented son of a bee, absolutely. But now you would think that would have worked to my benefit, but instead, I went to a new school, and the kids would make the same joke every day for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Hey, beat it, Bill! Hey, Billie Jean, you're such a thriller. Why don't you beat it?
Yeah.
I had a deep hate for most of those kids.
Kids are cruel.
Oh yeah, I mean Thank God I had a good upbringing. Otherwise, it could have been, I could have gone off the rails.
Yeah.
But so now '85 rolls around 2 years later, and I get people start calling me Mac. I'm like, yep, I'll take that.
That's
if it helps avoid. Nowadays, somebody just goes, "Oh, isn't that interesting? You have the same name as the famous guy."
Yeah.
But I don't. I actually refer to myself and think of myself as Mac now because for the majority of my life, that's what I've gone by.
Well, I will say this, and hopefully you'll find it funny, but my girlfriend said when we went for comics the other day, she was like, I want Mac to have another child so that I can call them the Jackson 5. And I just started laughing. I was like, I'm like, did you just think of that? She's like, yeah, I thought it would be funny.
Yeah, and see, there's the difference right there. If people make a joke, it's a quick joke, and you can laugh at it and move on.
Yeah.
Whereas kids in grade school,
yeah, they really,
and they didn't sit with me, they didn't bother with me.
Yeah.
They were just mean, and I didn't ask for that. I didn't do anything to deserve it.
Right.
So I kind of got pigeonholed.
Yeah.
But yeah, like nowadays, whatever. That's a funny joke.
Mm-hmm.
It's not meant to be.
Mean or
intent
cruel,
has a lot to do with it.
Well, the thing is, I mean, as you grow older, you're I know obviously you know this. I'm not saying it, to teach you any lesson or anything like that. But I mean, when you get older and your interests diversify and you have different things that you're looking at all the time, and you have so much coming in, one little joke is one thing, and then you don't harp on it. But kids, I mean, they are insistent because that's their whole world. It's like it's just the people they see every day and their parents, and whatever. They don't have anything else
with each other. If all of them were picking on me,
yeah,
you know what I mean. It strengthened their relationship.
Yeah. So right. I mean, it's good that you didn't grow up, maladjusted and
I had good parents that would say, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Here's what they think, that they're the ones who end up looking like idiots. And at the time you're thinking, yeah, but that doesn't solve my problem now. However, looking back on it, they're right. And I'm kind of proud that I didn't smack a lot more of them.
Yeah.
Because it got to that point where, okay, if you don't stop, the only thing, and I've had situations in my life where somebody teases you for so long and you go down the range of, oh, okay, ha, 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 to, all right, you got to stop.
Yeah,
ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, it's enough now.
I'm telling you, stop. And then you end up having to hit them because that's the only other thing you can do.
Right.
And thank God. I mean, I would have spent most of my childhood doing that if I wasn't as, patient, I guess?
Yeah.
With those kids. And eventually now they see me on the street and they're all nice to me. And, meanwhile, I'm thinking in the back of my head, you don't understand the potential damage you could have done.
Yeah.
By being so mean.
And you know what? I mean, people like that might not even think about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It might be because they're, oblivious for, to use the nicest term I could use, or because it didn't happen to them.
Right. Well,
you know what I mean?
Lucky for them. I don't know if many of them could handle it.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously I've moved on, even though I remember it. I don't think I'm gonna punch those people in the face. No, I got a cool nickname out of it. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I look back at myself as a kid with more admiration than I could have had.
Yeah.
I didn't break, basically, is what it came down to.
Right.
I could have.
And if anything,
well within my right to.
You know what? If anything, they'll probably always remember you.
Yeah.
If that's if you believe in I think it's Greek, right? The Greek philosophy is that glory is all that matters. Your name being remembered. It's Greek, right? The Iliad and the Odyssey and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, being known, being remembered. I mean, maybe they might remember you and nobody else, from elementary school or middle school. And considering the things that you do as a musician and all the other creative things, that could be something. They might say they might not remember the fact that they were teasing brats or anything like that, but they might say, hey, Mac Jackson's performing, let's go see, or at least even just say something about it.
Exactly.
So in the long, you never know what's gonna come of it.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I saw somebody on Facebook talking about me the other day, like, oh, is that checking in with somebody? I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. What's the saying that they say? Fame is being the center of conversation when you're not even in the room.
Yeah, something to that. I think that's paraphrased, but something to that effect. Yeah.
Yeah, and that always sticks in my mind.
Yeah.
But so I mean, I'm sure we'll come back to MacGyver and all that throughout many conversations. But he's mine. I know there's various situations that I can give you, but that along, like for you, it's Indiana Jones. For me, it's MacGyver. And as a matter of fact, here's a little connection. The way they've described MacGyver is, how do you explain this guy? Well, he's a combination of Indiana Jones and Mr. Wizard.
Right.
So, and it's true because they were very smart to, in many cases, have him go from one danger right into the next.
Mm-hmm.
And, Richard Dean Anderson has even said, for me, I've never been a sci-fi guy because they'll say, how did you end up becoming part of Stargate? And he said, I was never into sci-fi. I was more of an Indiana Jones kind of guy.
Yeah.
And I thought, all right, yes, I'm with you. I agree. But he also understands and has said, good writing is good writing. If you have a good mythology.
Right.
As far as, for me with sci-fi, I love, obviously, Stargate, Quantum Leap, Highlander. And the thing that ties all these type of shows together is they have a mythology. They set up the rules. It's not just anything goes type of thing. It's, no, you can do this, but you can't do that.
Right.
And there's a boundary. And within that boundary come these excellent potential stories. And so that's what he said. Like, that's why he wanted to be part of Stargate as Jack O'Neill. You know, as long as he didn't have to play it as straight as Kurt Russell did in the motion picture.
Right.
Have you seen the movie?
I saw the movie when I was very young. I actually have some figures from it.
Okay. Yeah, it's good, but it always seems like it's a pilot to a TV show.
Right.
Which, thank God, they took it and did an excellent 8 out of 10 years of TV with it. You know, because talking about doing more, Richard Dean Anderson became the executive producer on the show.
Okay.
Which meant that he fought for the actors to have a say in their character.
Right.
He didn't go in and say, this is how it's going to be. But he would hype up and say, you know, instead of me doing this episode, doing this part, why don't we give it to Michael Shanks? Because his character, Daniel, would benefit more from it. Like, he's very giving as an actor as well as a person.
Which is how you have to be.
Right. Well, unlike the stories I've heard of William Shatner during the Star Trek days.
Yeah.
But, yeah, he gives instead of takes. And he became the executive producer to be able to say, you know, let each actor have a say as to their character.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it benefited so much. He left after the 8th season to raise his daughter, Wiley, which I admire. If you're going to leave any type of project, you know, to be a good parent and to be there for your child, I can't think of a better reason.
Right.
But he said, you know, hey, if you want me to come back and do guest appearances throughout a season, I'll do it. Well, I knew it was going to suffer after he left without him in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. But holy crap, did the show go quickly downhill.
Oh, yeah.
All the other actors were fantastic, but they brought on 2 characters from Farscape, and the writing became cliche, which it never was before.
Right.
Robert Cooper, I believe, was the one who took over the show, and wow, he said, you know what, I don't want it to relate to the previous 8 years, which was a major mistake. They almost renamed the show, instead of it being Stargate SG-1, they were going to rename it Stargate Command, but they kept it SG-1 so that they would break the world record for the longest running sci-fi show.
Right, okay.
And I'm telling you, the quality of the show, it dropped, and I'm surprised it lasted a full 2 years. It ended after 10. They got canceled.
Right.
But you could actually feel the quality, and it was painful. And when they would have they didn't have him on for the 9th season at all. Big mistake.
Right.
And they didn't even explain where he went. The lead character, they never explain where he goes. You had to read about it online.
Right, right.
And then they have him come back a little bit for the 10th season. And the one episode, he basically waves from the door frame. Like, you're wasting potential there. You know, you brought on 2 new characters. You could have had him interact with them. He even said there are some loose threads that we can touch upon.
Yeah.
And they never bothered to, from what I understand, Robert Cooper just said, no, I'm going to do it my way. I don't care. Me. And, well, good. Now you got a great show canceled.
Well, going back to what you said about him being giving and everything, I think there's so few people who have a really good genius way of getting their vision out and just sticking to the way they want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't understand when people don't want to be collaborative, like you were saying, because even if you have 5 people in a room and you start throwing out ideas, even if you only get 1 good idea from each person, that's 5 good ideas. You know, that it's astonishing to me when people don't want to work together and give, because it's like I watch professional wrestling, and I'll just use this as an analogy because it kind of fits, but in professional wrestling, the whole idea is to make it look real and good. And the only way to accomplish that is if both people give and take, and you know, making someone else look good doesn't make you look bad. It makes you look good too. So when everyone looks good, the whole thing looks good, and that's how things get big and stand the test of time. You know, it needs to be that way. And you don't you don't hire, I hope people don't just hire actors to be pretty faces and say lines, because you know actors are creative as well.
Right.
And sure, there are some of the actors, like you just said, Shatner or whatever, and I still like Shatner because he's funny and whatever, but
yeah, he's a caricature.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, I don't know where I was just going with this, but you've got to,
about how the actor can be creative too.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a need, and I mean, yes, there's a story to stick to, but an actor shouldn't just worry about whether or not he's going to look cool, because I mean, one thing I've always known is that when you try to be something, it telegraphs, and it ruins it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There are some people who are just naturally cool, and that's fine, like Sam Jackson, and there's a handful of other people who are have just some natural cool about them. Morgan Freeman, and it's weird that all these people are, you know, black that I'm saying, but like,
hey, we could say the same thing about Harrison Ford.
Right, there's just this
Harrison Ford, Clint Eastwood.
They just have that, but when you try to force something that's not there, it ruins the story, because otherwise it would be a really great character. And I think probably, I haven't watched a lot of like the Shatner Star Trek stuff, but from what I've seen of it, like he really does try to portray Kirk as this like just badass all the time, like super right always. And like I don't have a lot of Star Trek knowledge, so I can't. I mean, other people, if anyone's listening to this who loves Star Trek, I'm not gonna be, you know, the be all end all. I'm just saying from what I've seen and what it looks like, that's what he comes across as. But in doing that, sure, Kirk is iconic, you know, maybe because of how long the show lasted, but is he iconic for like his character development? I don't know. And to me, that's more important. Like,
I agree. There should be
there could have been some great growth for Kirk's character.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, I can't speak for William Shatner or anything like that, but you know, sure, like he's famous, and that's awesome, and I'm glad that he's had a very successful career that's still going. But man, I mean, think about if he had let the character become more than just what it was, what kind of doors that could have opened for him for other stuff, you know, like instead of saying, well, yeah, we'll get Shatner because he's on the show that's huge and whatever, and his name is great, but like if they said, hey, look how awesome he is at portraying the depth of this character, you know, let's get him in a movie. Like, what movies could he have been in where, you know, maybe he would have gotten an Oscar or something like that? Because I do think Shatner's a very talented actor, but I think he's more concerned, maybe not now. Now I think he understands, let me play a dumb version of myself and people will laugh, and then I could keep my career going. But like,
yeah.
Okay. But what could it have been if he learned about collaboration and learned about not just sticking to the one thing? And I mean that is the case for some actors, and I don't know if that's because of, you know, that the same issue, just saying it has to be one way or not, or if they're just pigeonholed or, you know, typecast or whatever. That it's unfortunate.
I don't really think typecasting necessarily works anymore. That used to be a thing. I don't see it happen as much anymore. I think if the audience likes an actor, they'll try him in anything.
I don't know if that's true, because I think Jim Carrey people only want to see him in something funny, and now even that's a stretch. And Adam Sandler, same thing, and they're both fantastic dramatic actors. In my opinion.
Yeah, but I go the opposite way. For me, I think the world got sick of Jim Carrey being Ace Ventura and the Adam Sandler talking like a baby thing that he does.
They did, but
right?
they
when you
won't.
See them in dramatic roles, I agree wholeheartedly. Amazing Spanglish with him.
Yeah, I like Spanglish despite other people not liking it. Punch Drunk Love, Rain Over Me.
Yep.
Really, really good performances.
I agree. I look forward to better stuff. I don't want them to do the things that made them famous to begin with.
Yeah, and it's sad though because like people expect that of them, and I'm just gonna use those two because we said them, and I think they're good examples. It's unfortunate because people are gonna pass on those or just not accept them, and I did. I mean, as an actor, I want to hopefully do comedies, action, drama. I want to be able to branch out, and there's so few actors who have been able to do that. I think like Matt Damon has done it and done it well and been well received in all of it, and I can't even think of other people who have done it. Like Morgan Freeman, I guess, has.
Sure. And again,
but there's so few.
That's a testament to, I think, the actor. I will say this about Shatner. Before his Star Trek stuff, when he did the 2 Twilight Zone episodes, I thought he did an excellent job.
Okay.
And anything after that, I hated until last year he was on an episode of Psych.
Yeah. Oh, I saw that episode, yeah.
He did an excellent job.
It was funny.
I said to Cindy, wow, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he did a good job. He actually acted.
Yeah.
He didn't try and chew the scenery.
Right.
So that was a nice thing to be able to say finally.
Yeah.
But I do think there is a percentage of the audience that agrees with what you said about I only want to see them do this one thing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily relate to them. A lot of the conversations I have are with people such as yourself who sees the bigger picture.
Right. I mean, that partially could be because we are interested and marginally involved in the entertainment industry to a degree, not that we're huge names or anything like that, but, hoping,
doing our part.
Right, and that's that. And so, like I said, I mean, I can't begrudge people for, liking it on the surface and that's it, because I don't know. I don't want to force an opinion on anybody. Opinions are what you have and how you feel. I mean, it's just so I can be frustrated a little bit about it, but I'm not gonna.
Well,
I don't want to stand up and say.
Part to add in a positive way.
Right. I don't want to stand up and say this is the way it should be and appreciate everything because that road leads to Nazism and we don't want that. So,
I hate these guys.
Yeah, I hate these guys. But yeah, it's just unfortunate, but I don't know.
Since this is our first, it'll probably maybe be split up into 2 episodes at this point.
Maybe, or it'll just be the bonus long introductory
episode. I wanted to ask. I want to touch on all of our topics.
Yeah.
Comics. Who's your favorite comic characters?
My top favorite comic character, and it has evolved over the years because I grew up in the 90s. Obviously, I was a child in the 90s, and I had the absolutely astonishing luxury of being able to watch firsthand the X-Men cartoon, the Spider-Man cartoon, Batman the Animated Series, as a child, being able to see that, Ninja Turtles, and so like my first ever favorite superhero was Spider-Man. That's how it came to be, and I mean, I loved Batman and I loved Wolverine because the X-Men cartoon made him amazing. And those were like it for a long time. And then, as my brain started developing and my experience has changed somehow, I really began liking Captain America, and I don't even know what started it. I've always loved the red, white, and blue. Not that blue is my favorite color because of being a boy. My favorite color is actually purple, and because I like Donatello, and it's my birthstone. Don't know why, but that's my favorite color. And but I've always liked the red, white, and blue together, and I've always loved and appreciated America and the ideals of America. Not that I always agree with what goes on here or there, either side. I'm pretty moderate, but yeah, Captain America just always stuck out to me, and I didn't even read a lot of Captain America comics or anything. I mean, up until a couple years ago, I didn't even collect comics, so it was just always, movies or TV shows or whatever. That's how I got my superhero fix. But I always loved superheroes, and Captain America became my number one superhero, and is still that to this day. But then as I started reading comics and collecting them, there was the amazing Ed Brubaker run, obviously, of Captain America, and he brought Bucky back. And I mean, as
whole story,
yeah, it's fantastic. And I mean, I wasn't there when it started. I didn't come in until after Steve died, actually. So Bucky became Cap. And I was like, man, they made Bucky Captain America. I don't know, but I started reading it, and I was like enthralled, and I loved Bucky, and I loved Bucky as Captain America. So I mean, Bucky became my number one, but it's so I can't divorce Steve and Bucky. They're both number one as of right now. I was sad when the movie was coming out and they put Steve back in the costume. I understand why it had to happen, and it's fine. I'm accepting it, but I really liked Bucky as Cap. I mean, the whole
kept him around as Cap for a while long.
I wish they could have done something where even like made him a U.S. agent or something, but kept his costume. I just really dug his Captain America costume. But the story was so good because it was always like he could be the underdog because he wasn't even a superhero. He didn't even have Steve's superpowers. He had the arm, and that was it. But it was always him. It was very Indiana Jones to me. Like, he was always having to outsmart somebody or, think on his feet. I mean,
it's very physical.
Use his training. Yes, he had like Jason Bourne type training and whatever, but like he was the underdog, and I loved it because Steve is still an underdog in the world that he lives in, but not as much. And I never feel like he could be in any real danger because he's so good. But Bucky, I could feel like at any moment I was like, they could kill him off again, and they teased it where he did die, and I was furious for a while, like during Fear itself, when I would, until the very end of the arc where he comes back out of the shadows and he's like, I faked my death so I could be Winter Soldier. Okay, it was cool. I liked it. Winter Soldier is very good. But yeah, so it's Steve and Bucky, and then I mean, I still love Spider-Man, still love Wolverine, as cliche as it is. I just like their characters, and say what you want, but I mean, Wolverine's character has grown. Like, he's had a huge character arc.
The last 10 years.
And I mean, some people still use him in a certain way, and that's okay because people can regress, and that's understand. It's an actual human thing to do. Like, nobody's ever just one way all the time. But he's had such a growth that I really like.
Yeah, and I think they were smart to finally give him his memory back.
Yeah.
Like, how long can you keep going? Oh, I don't know who I am. Maybe I was this. Maybe I was that.
Right.
I'd rather them give us his history and let him find out through stories.
Right. Absolutely. And I get frustrated with the old timer comic readers who are like, this is never how it was. It used to be this. Well, you know what? Read your comics from the 80s or 70s or 60s, and you've got a lot. Just enjoy them and don't worry about what's going on now. It still exists. I hate when people say blah, whoever, blah, 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 Marvel, George Lucas, they ruined my childhood. No, they didn't. You know, you're not a child anymore, and you can still have the things that existed. They still exist. It's not like they, you know, I mean, with the exception of the special editions of the new trilogy, no one went back and erased it all, you know. They didn't go into your mind and change your memories to what it is now. It's just, right. You know, sometimes you just got to accept, like, it's different now. I don't like it. Maybe I should move on, you know. Right. Just do that. I myself can't, I have a really hard time reading comics from, like, the 70s and 80s and even the 90s. Like, it's just so much thought bubble exposition where I'm just like, really? Like, I read, I got through Maximum Carnage not that long ago when my friends had it, and it's a big storyline, and, you know, Venom and Carnage and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, I'm going to read it. And it felt like so much work because I'm sitting there reading Spider-Man's thought bubbles, like, he just punched me in the face, and now I have to do this, and I'm just like, oh, God.
I'm the same way. I don't need,
man. And some people are going to...
And I'll tell you, they used to do this with Spider-Man. And when they brought back a Brand New Day, they thought they were going to be cute and write it the same way. Where Spider-Man goes through his head with the plan that he's going to execute, and then all you do is watch him do it.
Yeah.
Like, give me the mystery. Give me the action of the moment. I don't need you to tell me every freaking thought in your head.
Right. And, you know, some people will probably listen to this and go, you guys don't love comics. Well, yeah, we do. You know, it's just, I'm glad that they evolved.
Absolutely.
And I appreciate where they came from. But for as far as being able to engross myself in a story, I can't, you know, I can't go back and read some of that stuff. And it's probably just a sign of how I grew up, you know, or in the time that I grew up, you know.
I'll tell you this. In the last 10 to 15 years, I'd say since Bendis became popular,
right,
comics have gotten so much better. I try and tell people who say, oh, you read comics. And I'll say, yeah, you know, you don't know what you're missing because they're not written for kids. I can't remember a time when they have been. In my lifetime, at least.
Yeah.
But the writing has gotten so mature to the point where it's not about the punch in the face. It's about the build-up before the threat of a punch to the face.
Right.
Like, everything has meaning.
Yeah.
You care about this intense conversation as opposed to just waiting for, you know, Superman to punch somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I'd say since the writers such as Brubaker and Bendis and Kirkman.
Yeah.
I remember that sudden shift where, boy, you had to pay attention to what you were reading.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel so bad for the people who aren't even given it a chance.
Well, no, because there's always going to be that stigma that they're exactly the way that they were even in the 80s. Like, boom, pow, you know, like... it's fluff, you know, it's Saturday morning cartoons or whatever.
Right.
And it's so much different. It's like, now it's more like The Sopranos or Boardwalk Empire or Lost. Yeah, like they're just, it's so much more involved. You can engross yourself in it and actually feel for the characters and stuff. And I mean, I think slowly there will build a trend where people might get into it, whether it's for a character or even like the independent based stuff. And maybe like since Walking Dead is doing so well, people might start getting that, especially with like the, you know, the iPads and things like that. People don't have to go to a comic book store where they might be afraid that, you know, there's going to be all these unwashed, overweight nerds there or whatever the stigma or the cliche is. And they could just get it right, you know, whenever they want it and give it a read. And if they like it, fine. If they don't, they didn't really lose much, you know. So hopefully that does turn the tide a little bit. And I mean, with the success of the movie of the Avengers and Spider-Man is doing well, I hear. I haven't seen it yet, but
I've heard good things.
I mean, with those movies doing big business and people enjoying them, you know, not being upset like, oh man, all these people went to see this movie and I saw it and it sucked and whatever. Um, you know, maybe that'll bring people into reading, you know, and understanding that it's so much more than it used to be. Hopefully, I mean that's the ideal, but
right. Well,
I'm not going to expect
I'll
it.
tell you, because of The Walking Dead being so successful, thank God.
Yeah.
I've gotten a whole bunch of people at work who maybe mention it or whatever. I'm like, you need to get the book.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing they may come back with, well, I'm just watching the same thing on TV.
Right.
No, not.
No, not even close.
It's different enough. So I also will look up the link for them and say, you know, you can either go to the comic book store, or if you can't get out, here's a cheap website to get them.
But I mean, even Books A Million or Barnes and Noble, they have them there. Like you're just going to a bookstore. You don't have to feel like you're going to a Nerd Haven or something like that. You can just get them right there, and it's worth it.
Everybody who started to read them, they're hooked. They're like, okay, I love the show, and now I love the book.
Mm-hmm.
I said the quality, because it's the same writer, has never dipped.
Right.
It just builds and builds and builds.
Well, I think you know, at first I was a little jarred in the differences, if we're going to talk about The Walking Dead right now,
sure,
between the show and the book, because I've read all the volumes, and
sure,
I wait for the trades now because I'm so far behind that I don't want to just start picking up the books, and I have the whole collection of the trades. So, but and then I read an interview with Kirkman. I either read it or he said it in a video or something, like where he said, I'm going to paraphrase him, but he said something about like he can enjoy watching the show because even he doesn't know what's going to happen. And I was like, you know what, that is actually a good point. Like, do I want to just sit and watch the show version of what I've already read? Maybe. But the whole idea of the book was you never know what's going to happen. And so that translates to the show. Now, you know what? Even if you read all the books, you're going to get some of it, but you're still never going to know.
Oh, I know. Well, what about the fact that they kill off characters that are still in the book?
Yeah. Or let characters live that weren't living. Right. You know, it's interesting.
You never see it coming.
It's interesting, and it's cool. It's its own universe, but with the same rules as the book. And it's smart because, you know, you'll have the audience who read the books to watch the show and say, well, this is crazy. Let's see what's going to happen now. So unless something goes wildly wrong, like the actors start not caring or the performances are bad or whatever, the show the writing starts getting absolutely out of hand. I mean, they've got a long-standing series that could hold attention for a while, and I'm happy for it.
And you know why? It's because they're treating the material with respect.
Yeah.
I've always loved zombies. If you got to go down the horror route, as far, you know, like, yeah, I never cared for say vampires or Frankenstein or werewolves so much because it's not, you know, or the Freddy Kruegers.
Right.
Like, really, that's not realistic. However, an epidemic that breaks out and affects people, your neighbor, your family, that's scary as can be.
Yeah.
You know, so I've always loved that, but it's very, very hard to, I guess, find people that do it right. It's a combination of you got to get good actors, you got to get a good script. Movie-wise, Shaun of the Dead, obviously, and the new Dawn of the Dead that came out around the same time.
Right.
Those were my top zombie go-to places because everything else would suffer somehow.
Yeah.
Well, now Walking Dead comes out, and I'm telling you, it is excellent. It is so good that I can't put it into words. Right. And that's not just because, it's from a book that I read. If there had never been a comic book and this show came out, it would still be just as good. Yeah.
And I think, we're living in a time right now, it's so exciting because people are respecting the source material, you know, and I don't know why it took so long to do it. But it's like people are the people who are making movies. I don't know if it's just like the old crew is out and a new crew is in who can stand there and say, yes, you know what, we have this story and it's good. We don't need to change it, you know, at least not a lot. Or the people who created it are involved on the other end, like Kirkman is with the show, who can say, well, you know what, if I was going to do it a little bit different, I would do it like this and still keep the same flavor, you know.
Yeah.
And it's exciting because I'm not, there's like, there was that period where like things I enjoyed were being made into movies, and I was really you'd be concerned, like, are they going to do a good job with it? You know, it's going to be different, but is it going to be okay? And now things are going to come out, and it's like, I already know that they're going to be good because they're respecting the source material. And I'm not really overly worried. Like the only one that really, the only thing that came out in recent years that really killed me was the Avatar movie, not James Cameron's Avatar, the Last Airbender, based on the cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Was awful. And that's the only thing I can think of in the past couple of years that came out that was based on something that just came out terrible, you know. Because Green Lantern wasn't even that bad, like you said earlier. It really, I mean, it wasn't great, but it wasn't that bad. It wasn't Catwoman, so I mean, that's a win right there. And I like, for perspective, I'm a guy who likes the Daredevil movie. You know,
me too.
I think it's great. The only thing it suffers for is that it can't be related to any of the rest of the Marvel universe. And I hope if they do another one,
they're supposed to.
Yeah. I hope that they can bypass that and make references or bring him into somebody else's world and have a cameo or whatever. But, you know, that was the only thing that suffered for me. I didn't even dislike the Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin because I don't know of any white actor who can fill that role. And I mean that as in size-wise.
Sure.
Without some sort of...
It'd have to be an unknown.
Prosthetic suit. Yeah, or something like that, because... he had the physical presence to play the character and the means, and I think he did it really well. And I thought that was something that really didn't bother me ever. And I love Kingpin as a character, because I love that world, like Daredevil and Spider-Man, and I know you do too. So,
well, Daredevil's my number 2 as far as superheroes go. He's my favorite Marvel character.
Yeah.
He's as close to that whole being human quality and the heroes that I love.
Right.
From the Marvel universe. Plus, he's an excellent martial artist, and you know.
Yeah.
I also like a little bit of superhero-ness with his heightened senses. That's cool.
Yeah.
The only problem I had with the Daredevil movie myself was the director choreographs all these excellent fight scenes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a sucker for a great fight scene.
Right.
You know, I'm into American Kempo, so I love fluid movement, all of it. Well, Daredevil emphasizes that whole constant movement. If he gets punched, he turns that into his next hit.
Right.
Well, you watch the movie, and they just show elbow, knee. They zoomed in so close, you couldn't make out most of the fight scenes. Right.
And I mean, that's an issue for a lot of stuff.
Like, holy crap, why bother to go through the effort?
Yeah.
You know.
It's not like Affleck couldn't have done it, you know. I don't know if how much he did of his own stunts. I think he did a little bit, but
I did a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Especially the fight scenes, and that's the part that mattered most to me.
Yeah.
Like, you're there. You choreograph those movements.
Mm-hmm.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As an actor, that's what I want to do. I would love to do fight scenes and stunts and stuff like that, too. And that's because my hero, Harrison Ford, does it. So.
Well, same thing with Richard Dean Anderson.
Yeah.
Richard Dean Anderson did most of his own stunts to the point where he's had to have now back surgery, knee surgery.
Yeah.
You know, but all through MacGyver and Stargate, unless it was something where they said legally there's no way we can swing it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you'll see the footage.
Mm-hmm.
He's thrown himself out windows. He's, rolling off cars, all of that.
Right.
And it makes a difference in the overall material because you're actually watching that guy.
Right, right.
You could always tell that's a stunt guy,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, same with Harrison Ford. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So many things that Richard D. Anderson and Harrison Ford cross over with.
Yeah.
That makes me love and admire them both. All right, and we're going to cut it right there. That is the first half of our initial podcast. Tune in for part 2.
She turned away and said, once I loved, but love is dead. And I whispered, sometimes love is only sleeping.